What is fluorescent powder pigment tracking? Fluorescent powder is basically used as a way for scientists to track the movements of small organisms, traditionally small rodents. They use a fine fluorescent powder and they dust it directly on the animal. Not only does this make the animal look super cool like a mutant superhero or something, but by observing the powder track left by the animal after it's released, science nerds can learn all kinds of things about the animal's movements, like its habitat use, foraging behavior, and even social interaction. This method is currently being used by conservationists as a non-invasive and relatively safe way to understand the habits of small animals. Scientists have mostly used powder to study rodents, but studies involving reptiles and amphibians are becoming more prevalent, showing that this method is a versatile and safe way to understand a variety of organisms. Upset at the low reptile representation in the use of this crazy neon powder, a group of scientists in Canada in 2011 decided to see how effective powder tracking would be on a group of garter snakes. They gathered a group of garter snakes, dusted them with the fine powder, wished them luck, and then released them no more than 5 meters from where they had been captured. The snakes were held for less than an hour each, and 36 hours later, using a fluorescent lamp and assumedly listening to some really pounding hard rock music, trackers were able to witness not only some pretty trippy snake trails, but were also able to tell exactly where the snakes had gone, what kinds of things they had encountered along the way, and where their burrows were located. This is also a fun method for teachers to use with older students, namely high school or college-age kids. The University of Maine's vernal pools team hired a group of undergraduate students in 2014 to help track the habitat choices of wood frogs. The students were quoted as saying that their summer experience was incredibly fun and they felt like they were doing something good. And while not all students said they would choose a career in ecology, most said that they enjoyed their experience and they understand why their work was so important. So pigment tracking could be a fun and hands-on way to get kids out in nature and use a highly visual aid to understand the world around them. While turning little animals into something straight off of a Lisa Frank Trapper Keeper seems 100% harmless, studies have shown that there may be some drawbacks. Pigment tracking is able to provide an exact record of movement, unlike common transmitters. The powder is light, non-invasive, cheap, and requires very little training to use. Researchers can also see exactly what the animals encountered along its path. And it's also a good method to use on animals that are too small for things like radio transmitters. And although this method has not been used very much to record the movements of reptiles and amphibians, a study in 2006 by Rittenhouse, Altogether, and Semlich showed that the powder has no effect on things like water retention, growth, and survival in amphibians. However, pigment tracking can only be used to identify short-term movements, and some studies suggest that the coloration might actually make the animal more visible to predators, which would be really unfortunate if the animal being studied was an endangered species. A study published in Herpetological Conservation and Biology in 2011 showed that the animal's initial path may be adversely affected by the handling required to powder the subject, and a study by Paul Stapp and his colleagues revealed that in 1994, 27% of the powdered organisms they studied developed pneumonia, assumedly caused by the powder inhalation. So it seems like fluorescent pigment powder tracking is becoming a more prevalent way to track small organisms in their wild habitat. Most studies show that this is a direct and safe way to conduct short-term observations, and all of this leads one to wonder, maybe this could be used in our daily lives. Maybe the mystery of where your outside cat goes all day could finally be solved.